Welcome back to Boiler House Garage. I thought it was about time I introduced my new car to the channel, and here it is. A 2014 MK7.5 Ford Fiesta ST 180. And yes, I've tucked myself up yet again with one of the worst examples I could find. Starting with the more obvious faults, such as the front tyres being bald, the rears are punctured, the brake pads all around are wafer thin, and it has a general feel of being worn uncared for and is pretty filthy. The interior here smells like what I can best describe as a stale gym bag. Next, you could probably hear the loud roar of the cooling fans, which are running full blast all the time when the engine is running, and they even continue to run on for about 5 or 6 minutes after switching off, so something is most likely wrong with the cooling system. On the plus side, the noise of the fans do cover the clattery sound of the engine, and you can just about hear the eek of a worn belt tensioner or bearing from one of the ancillaries. The coolant and oil were both unreasonably low when I picked the car up, and I did notice a small pool of coolant had collected under the expansion tank and runs down the inner wing and drips onto the road. So I'm crossing my fingers that this is the source of the cooling issue and that there's just some airlocks thanks to this leaking and being allowed to sort of run out before top-ups. Let's switch the engine off, not that we'll hear much better over the racket the fans are going to keep making. I'm getting the oil as hot as possible to change it in just a moment. On the other side of the engine we find a Forge Motorsport induction kit, which includes a pipe across foam air filter which is in terrible shape, looks like it was never cleaned and has a huge rip in the side of it. There's a metal plate that I refuse to call a heat shield, as if anything it's preventing cool air from reaching the filter, and most noticeably is this blue silicone intake pipe, which being the wrong blue to match the bodywork I think would have looked better in red or yellow. Another issue to note is that there's a lot of smoke on startup. This is a blue-black smoke which is almost certainly oil. It does clear, so thankfully it's unlikely to be the turbo or the piston rings. It may be valve stem oil seals, that was certainly a common Ford issue on earlier cars. I suspect this has more to do with the crankcase ventilation and recirculation, which has been exacerbated by what I think is the most unforgivable mistreatment by the car's previous owner, which is why I'm doing the oil change immediately, as this ST has not had an oil change for 38,000 miles. In the 4 years the previous owner had the car, he spent £500 on a noisy exhaust, but he's not even done the most rudimentary maintenance, and I imagine some of the running issues were his motivation for selling it to the dealer that I bought it from as a trade sale. Now, I'm not going to video the oil change now, but here's the oil filter location above the radiator hose and awkwardly above some other oil lines in the way of removing it. This latticed area is the sump, and on the opposite side we find the drain plug. It's a 13mm nut and is designed to not need a crush washer. Since the oil filter is a bit hard to get your hands around, it's doubtful that it will actually be removable by hand, but it's always worth a try. It might be hard to get some oil filter removal tools in here as well, but I've got this strap type which lets you get a ratchet or a spanner on the side of it. The earlier mentioned running issues show on the dash as a spanner, and it gives the confusing message of engine service now. Despite actually needing a service, this really indicates I've got two fault codes, P2681, a coolant bypass valve control circuit, and code P006A, which relates to manifold air pressure or mass or airflow. This could be a MAF sensor which is located in the inlet manifold. Ford do it the opposite way to Vauxhall, and you'll find the inlet at the front and the exhaust at the back of the head. The coolant bypass valve is also near the head around this area, and I think it's designed to control the flow of coolant between the head, the block and the radiator. There's even more pipework for that running under these intake and vent pipes. So I've got quite a few jobs to do on this, most of which I'll try and film. We'll start with the coolant bypass valve, as this engine isn't going to last much longer like this with the fans running overtime to try and keep it cool. This will also lead me to replacing the expansion tank at the same time, as I'll be draining all the coolant. I'm not 100% on if I have a MAP or MAF sensor faults, or perhaps it's due to this mangled intake setup. I'll look for a standard airbox from a scrapper just to see if it clears the fault code. I've already got a set of 4 Goodyear Eagle F1s being fitted tomorrow for 420 quid. I've been on to EBC Brakes in Bristol, and I'm getting a full set of their green stuff pads. I'm going to do 2 oil changes, treating this first one as a flush and then doing a 5 to 1,000 miles, then changing it again. After a few months I'll then do a third oil change along with several of the other neglected filters and fluid. For now, wish me luck with this otherwise very nice to drive pocket rocket. Please like and subscribe to be notified of new videos when I upload them, and feel free to comment any questions, suggestions, or let me know if you've had an ST or just what you think of them. Thanks very much for watching.